G'day, it's Melotherus with another episode of Fearless Singer. We are at episode 31 and today I'll be talking about jazz, my story of how I got into jazz singing. And yeah, I'm not filming it today. Normally I do for YouTube, but I just had a big day of filming myself. I think you get to a point where you're done looking at yourself and talking to yourself. Not that I don't get me wrong, I love myself, but there's something a little bit strange about that process, and it went on for quite a while. So I'm just giving myself the grace of not filming this episode. Anyhow, let's talk about my jazz story and how jazz singing may change your life. It changed mine. Welcome to the Fearless Singer podcast. This podcast is about empowering and elevating singers and helping them to undo those fear-based narratives holding them back from living the life of their dreams. I'm your host, Melotherus. I'm a singer, life biz vocal coach, and I'm so bloody glad you're here. I'm back with my story about how I got into jazz singing. But like a lot of these stories, they're not particularly linear. And, you know, we tend to get little signs at different intervals of our life to suggest that, you know, maybe we will be at some stage spending some time with a certain genre or, you know, find ourselves in a particular career. And I think I first got that sign, when I was 7 years old. My dad bought me a Nina Simone cassette tape from a petrol station, and we pretty much blared it from the car stereo all the way home. And I have to paint the scene because my dad had this beautiful maroon Pontiac. It just purred, and it was actually, it's so funny. At the time, I thought it was really embarrassing. But now, as a 40-year-old, well, soon to be 40-year-old, I just look back and think, oh my gosh, it was just like the setting for an idyllic childhood, driving around Bundaberg, always blaring music quite loud, whether it was Jimi Hendrix or who else did we blare loud? Chad Morgan. That was quite frequently listened to in the Pontiac. But yeah, we did the same thing for the Nina Simone. And at that time, I was only really accustomed to listening to, you know, rock music and you know, a lot of classical music. And it was probably my first introduction to jazz. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is a style that I felt really strongly connected to. And I guess it was also Nina Simone's magical voice and, you know, her soul as well. I think I was really connected to her. But I knew that there was something to this genre, and I knew that I wanted some part of it. And then, you know, we skip forward quite a few years, and I'm working in a music shop. Actually, it was called the Music Shop. There was one in the Queen Street Mall here in Brisbane, and one in the Valley, and I worked between both. But this time it was, in the Valley. And a jazz singer who had been travelling around France actually came in. I can't remember her name. And yeah, I was really intrigued. And she said, "Have you listened to much of Sarah Vaughan and Ella Fitzgerald?" And even though I had heard Ella and Sarah, and you know, I wasn't an avid listener at that time. I was just a dead set punk. I loved punk and rock and roll, and I was in the Warm Guns. It was a rock band I was in with Kelly Lloyd from Scream Theatre and my best friend Amy Zuffa and our mate Murray. And so it was very much about that. So I kind of lied. I pretended that I knew a lot about jazz. But, you know, when it does prompt you to go, ooh, I might just go and explore this a little bit further. And I did. And then, you know, fast forward, I'm in London this is after working in the public service for a few years. I decided to run away to London thinking I was going to just fully submerge myself into the music scene, become a musician and just give away, the corporate world, which I didn't. I just completely transplanted my life here in Brisbane. I just transplanted it over there. So I was still working in the corporate world, but doing the rock and roll on the weekends. But it was at that stage I was playing keyboard, and I had played keyboard in the Warm Guns, but I wasn't very good at it. But I was very good at pretending that I was good at it. It was very much an acting job. And I thought, you know what? I am going to get jazz piano lessons, which I did because at the time I was really into Miles Davis. In fact, Miles Davis, the Workin' album, got me through my homesickness. We sometimes just are attracted to certain music, and at that time it was that album. And in particular, it never entered my mind. It was literally, for me, it was like eating chocolate. I got the same dopamine hit from listening to that song, and it saved me from being severely sad on many occasions. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to get some jazz piano lessons, and I did from a guy called Gabriel Latchin. You should check him out. He's an amazing jazz pianist. And he's online. He has music on Spotify. And I went to Chiswick, to this beautiful house, to get these lessons from him. And I was kind of a little bit terrible. I've since become a lot better. But at the time, I wasn't really fully invested in it. And he actually said to me, you know what? You've got a really good voice. Why don't you try singing some of the repertoire? And I said, actually, I know a song. And I sang for him Misty. And he was like, yeah, I think you should really just explore more of the singing. And which was just this really nice little prompt. I never advise people just to give up on a skill just because they're not good at it. That's, what I essentially did. And I haven't given up. At the time I did. I'm still working my way through the piano. And as many of you know, I've accomplished a couple of feats. I played the piano at the Brisbane Jazz Club in the last gig. It wasn't jazz, but, I'm getting there. And, so this is what spurred me on and catapulted me into the jazz singing world. So I finished up in the UK. I went to Japan, oh my goodness, China for a few months, and Shanghai in particular. And I came home and I thought to myself, okay, I've got a bit of a choice here. I can keep going down this corporate route. I can go and get a job in corporate communications because that's what I was doing. Or, I'm 27, I don't have any kids, I don't have a mortgage. I could just go and study music properly. And my mum, thank goodness, because my mum is pretty much, she still is just a bit of a voice of reason, but also if I've got my mum's approval, I know you shouldn't seek external approval or validation, but mum still is that character for me. But at the time she was really supportive, and which was really encouraging. And so I auditioned for the Jazz Music Institute, and I really wanted to go to the Jazz Music Institute because I saw it as just a little bit more embracing of mature age students. There seemed to be like a mixed bag. There was a lot of young people, but all different ages, which appealed to me. Plus, what appealed to me too was that some of the, heavyweights in Australian jazz were working there. And, one in particular, teacher that I wanted to work with was there. She actually left. And then I got to work with the amazing Shani Russell. So that was a massive blessing. And and the rest is history. So that's kind of how I got into jazz and jazz singing. But I guess what's more important is what made me stay. Because, a lot of us have studied music in the past, or, we've studied a particular style, but we've moved on. And of course I have explored other genres, and I do perform other genres. I perform, a lot of pop, soul, rock, blues, straight blues. But what keeps me coming back to jazz? And how has it changed my life, and how will it change yours? You're probably listening going, yeah, jazz has already changed my life. So in that case, I really want to hear from you. How has jazz changed your life? Please DM me. I'm at Melotherus on Instagram, Melotherus on Facebook, or Fearless Singer on YouTube, or leave a comment wherever you are listening. And I really want to hear your jazz story and how it shaped you. So I'm actually going to stop this episode. I'm trying a new thing with the solo episodes. I'm just, trying to keep them fairly short. So next week I'll talk about how jazz has changed my life, why I keep coming back for more, and how it can change yours. And I have some listening recommendations. So please check out Miles Davis's It Never Entered My Mind. Listen to it a few times, actually. It's with your headphones on. And also check out Julie London's version of It Never Entered My Mind. It's with Barney Kessels. It's just beautiful. And listen to Nina Simone. My favourite Nina Simone standard the standard that she sings is I Love You, Porgy. And also check out Carmen McRae's version of Exactly Like You. I just love the way she phrases it. It's so hip, so cool. And if you have any jazz listening recommendations, please also DM me. Honestly, I really love hearing from you. If anything has stood out in this episode, again, please let me know. And I look forward to talking to you more next week. Lots of love. G'day, mate. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend. And also, if you were to give me a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, it means that other Fearless Singers can find Fearless Singer Podcast. Thanks in advance.